Hello, welcome back to my channel. What's going on? Thanks for being curious and clicking on this video. It's a part 2, an addendum to the last video that I did, going through CIA declassified documents in support of our research and our study of the current book, Esoteric Psychology by Alice A. Bailey, discussing the nature of and the proof for or against for the existence of a soul, dovetailing into all of these other questions of, is spirituality something that's fictitious, pseudoscience, all those things that are related with it, astrology, study of the moving bodies, study of the psychic self, human capabilities, psychological capabilities, all those things. Mainstream has been under the consensus that yes, woo-woo, non-scientific. Behind the scenes, we've got major institutions in different countries in our country studying heavily and finding that there are many instances, reportable, repeatable instances of support for what mainstream has still continued the narrative of calling pseudoscience. So I've embarked on a little journey to go through the reading room. CIA has a reading room, FBI, all of three-letter agencies, I think, under the Freedom of Information Act. So I'm going to click through to continue what I had started in the last video, but actually sharing the documents. I'm just going to kind of click through and read through a bunch of them that I kept up when I was going down that little rabbit hole. Hope that you are doing well or endeavoring to become so, and thank you so much for watching. Here we go. Screen share. So this is the main page. This is what it looks like. It is the CIA.gov, Freedom of Information Act, electronic reading room. There is a home page before this. I clicked on advanced search and I typed in the word spirit. I did two different searches. One was for the word spirit and the other one was for the word psych, P-S-Y-C-H, so that I could pull up any articles related to or mentioning the terms psych, psyche, psychology, and there's some other things that came up as a consequence of that, like psycho-cybernetics. Not psycho-cybernetics, that's the book. We'll see as I click through. And I went through basically the first 3 pages, 30 pages of results down here, and click through. They have the titles of the documents you'll find stored under various headings, from something as specific and crazy as the CIA will pay for its crimes to something as general as untitled. These are not saying that these are exactly what is true. You'll find that there's a number of different kinds of articles. Some of them are internal memos. Some of them are documents that they have acquired from other sources, other countries' documents, other countries' meeting records, other countries, like they've got documents from China, documents from Russia, declassified documents, all of them. They have different rating levels of what kind of release that they have. Some of them they call that they have been sanitized, so you'll have certain terms and things redacted, but the rest of it has been released for public view. You also have the publication date and some other details. I'll have a summary screen, and then you click on the actual PDF to open up the original document. And sometimes they're poor copies, sometimes they're clear, legible, they all change. And you'll see that sometimes if it's a crazy title like this, it's literally a copy of an article that was published in a newspaper or a magazine that they considered something to watch, which is also fascinating. There's also letters back and forth, internal staff memos, all kinds of fun stuff. And then there's experiments, so notes and reports from different experiments that are conducted, and that's kind of what I turned my attention to. So we'll get started. Let me pause this real quick and make sure everything's looking good and legible, and then I'll come back in. Okay, so we're just going to start clicking through from the tabs that I have open. Again, this one was from the search where I entered the term spirit. This is an example of one of the Stargate collection articles from 1973, released in part for publication, for public viewing, and the title was Rosemary Brown's Conversation with the Dead. You'll see that it's actually in a memo. So this is a memorandum written where it is basically a debunking. This one was a debunking one, if I recall correctly. So, but it's interesting still that they are looking at it and discovering whether or not these people are actually in communication. And even though on a mainstream level, it's completely just kind of like, no, it's not possible. Again, there's like serious investigation into an inquiry into these cases to find out which are accurate, and then following that thread even further to harness those powers internally for governmental purposes or whatever it may be. So this memo says the subject is Rosemary Brown's Conversations with the Dead. 1. This memo is a summary of the significant sections of Rosemary Brown's book. So they look at books, they look at magazines, they look at people's articles and publications. So when you're posting something online too, just know that it could be flagged for review and studying these top secret documents, which is kind of fascinating to me too. So again, this was approved for release. It was previously a confidential record. It says that they studied Mrs. Brown's book titled Unfinished Symphonies, Voices from the Beyond, New York, published by William Morrow in 1971. Although I have ordered okay, that's not relevant right here. Rosemary Brown has the undoubted ability to compose music in the styles of classical composers and to perform the music she's composed. This ability is not unique to Rosemary Brown. This is underlined. While in these days of extensive formal education, it's customary that persons are able to compose music in a variety of styles. Let me read that again. While in these days of extensive formal education, it is customary that persons able to compose music in a variety of styles will have had some specific training in the subject. The absence of such formal training does not seem remarkable in the light of numerous historic instances of self-taught musicians. What is remarkable about Rosemary Brown is her claim that these compositions are not her own, but have been dictated to her from the beyond, in quotes, by the living spirits of deceased famous composers. They talk about the concept of channeling. So this is a female who says that she channeled a composer, and that is how she got the ability to make this kind of music. They go on to say, though, that her claim should be understood in the light of her own family background in spiritualism. At the age of 7, Rosemary was already accustomed to seeing the spirits of so-called dead, page 13, and many of the assertions she makes of the beyond, example, the healing power of spirits, are consistent with what she would have learned at the spiritualistic meetings she attended. Miss Brown's most frequent communicator is the spirit of Franz Liszt, who not only dictates music to her, but advises her on the prices of bunches of bananas, pages 100 to 101, when the price tag is hidden from view. So this is part of one example I kept up because it shows the spirit of folks who are looking into this with a kind of cynical lens, which is kind of what I hear mostly in the community of people who do believe that these are false accounts or can be explained away through some logic, or someone's trying to do some kind of scam like they used to shake the tables to make fake seances back in the day. So this is kind of written in that vein, but it is actually investigating the claims of a psychic, a self-proclaimed psychic. So they're saying that it's explained away by her family history, her background. She was raised this way, so it makes sense that she would believe that this is what's happening to her. So this, again, is a totally logical conclusion, and they're accurate probably, but it doesn't end there, which is interesting because, again, this is CIA declassified documents of their study of several accounts to kind of get to the ones that are not fake but then that information wasn't then released to the public. So this says schizophrenics, plenty of people believe that they're having conversations, but there's nothing remarkable or in-depth or detailed to require me to accept her explanation of spiritual origin. And then it goes on to make a very interesting final joke that she says that she communicates with Einstein and got a final equation from him, and says that if you think Einstein never would have came up with the quoted discourse, you are likely to dismiss Mrs. Brown, notwithstanding the favorable introduction to her book by the Bishop of Southwark, who has his own reasons for believing in life after death. So this is an interesting first account. This next page is striked because it is exempt. So this goes back to those titles of that it's released in part for the public, so they can still deem parts or segments of the document not to release to the public. So this page was stricken from that record. Carrying on, this one was where it started to get interesting. We have 20 Thailand superstitions. So this article is in the General CIA Records from Crest from 1954, and it was released in 98. And then interesting, it says the document was created in 2016, possibly for the Freedom of Information Act. And so we click on it, and it says that in 1954, they were looking into Thai superstitions and beliefs to understand the people and what other countries believe in terms of this as well. So it says hundreds of special customs and practices, often labeled superstitions by foreigners, are prevalent in Thailand. Many of them originated in India and have traveled throughout Southeast Asia with the tide of Buddhism and Hinduism. Many of the Thai beliefs listed in this paper are found also in Burma, Indonesia, and other countries of the Far East. Thais would reject the term superstition, underlined, as applied to their beliefs because the word connotes an invalid or irrational belief. Their customs have lasted many centuries and are held by almost all Thais. Superstitious practices usually are considered to be manifestations of fear of the unknown, but not all are based on fear. The Thailand customs pertain to the workings of both good and evil spirits in everyday life. This paper lists 20 of the most prevalent superstitions in Thailand in both rural and urban areas and their rationales. While the influence of Western ways has to some slight extent modified some of these practices, they are for the most part still in vogue, even among Thais who have had some modern education. Most superstitions in some way deal with spirits, good or evil. This partial list of Thai beliefs is divided into 4 sections. 1. Superstitions related to general symbolism. 2. Superstitions concerning animals. 3. Superstitions pertaining to people. And 4. Superstitions about spirits in general. The selection was made by a former missionary who lived in Thailand for more than 20 years and has written a number of books on the country. 1. General symbolism. A. Mystic ceremonies. It's a common belief that the observance of mystic rites upon initiation into any organization makes one impervious to knife or gun wounds. Tattooing is quite often a part of the ceremony. B. Wearing of symbols. Akin to the mystic ceremonies is a wearing of the symbols on clothing of tin woven, often woven into the cloth. One of the most common symbols is the unalom, a flame-like symbol more often found in India. These symbols provide the same immunity to knives and gun wounds as do mystic ceremonies. I'm going to jump down to the third one, people. A. The head. Under no conditions may a person be touched on the head because the Thais believe a person's spirit lives in a small hole in the top of the head, and touching it is a mark of disrespect which permanently injures the spirit. Super interesting. D, this one, crazy. You hear this when they talk about these crazy females that you need to watch them making your spaghetti. This is so interesting that this came up right here. Love potion. If a woman wishes to cause a man to fall in love with her, she prepares him a meal mixing part of her menstrual blood into the food. When a man eats this food, it is supposed to bind the two together eternally. Cleanse yourself, men. Cleanse yourselves. Sage and pray. And make your own spaghetti sauce. E, astrology. Sorry, this is actually being practiced by females now that this stuff is carried over from. They go to a spiritual shop and pick up some sort of magic book and think they're doing something. It's scary out there. So, people don't know what they're working with and they don't know what they're summoning, but this is going back, way, way back. And so it's interesting that these come from the Eastern customs and Eastern beliefs. And then I'll just read here, right here. E, astrology. Nothing of any importance is ever undertaken without consulting an astrologer. So over there again, it's not considered pseudoscience. It is something that is deemed irresponsible if you don't consult with an astrologer before taking on anything important. And this one is interesting. Spirits in general. D, creation of evil spirits. We'll start right here with A, steps. First I said that the number of steps leading to a Thai house is always an odd number because evil spirits always take steps by twos. And if a single step is left at the end, the spirit will fall to the ground and will not be able to enter the house. B, friendly and evil spirits. The spirit of a person who dies in peace from natural causes continues in the afterlife as a friendly spirit. Spirits of those dying violently or from an infectious disease live on as evil spirits. C, location of spirits. After death, spirits continue to hover in the general area of the death. And D, creation of evil spirits. The best method in Thai thinking of protecting any valuable possession is to create an evil spirit nearby to guard it. To accomplish this, in former days, a person was told to guard this possession and then killed. Isn't that wild? Because the person met a violent death, his spirit became evil and continued to reside in that vicinity. This method was very common until about 1850. It is now frowned upon generally, but still sometimes practiced. Instead of killing a person, now someone dying from an infectious disease is brought to that spot to die and leave an evil spirit behind. Alright, so we're going to move ahead. This one here, again, another one from Stargate. Title is Examining Psychic Phenomena. This one from 1998. It says it is classified as a letter, but this one is a article, and then it has this note here. It says, for your research files, parapsychology as, and I can't make out this word, but it says as something to Woody Allen. So this is another one that's really jokey. This one is clearly filed away by a skeptic, right? And it's funny to even see the contrast, as some of these are really like cynical and skeptical, and then we get into some that are like hardcore and like, oh, we've actually verified this is true. And you'll see. So this one here. There is no question that there is an unseen world. The problem is, how far is it from Midtown and how late is it open? And so that's kind of basically the tone of this whole article. It's pretty... apparitions. This gentleman awoke in the middle of the night and saw his brother, his 14-year-old brother who had passed away. His brother who had passed away 14 years prior. And at one point it says his brother went through the wall, and then the ghost walked through the wall, and Dubs tried to follow him and broke his nose. So just nonsense, but this was a classified file for some time, and then it was approved for public release. So you'll find you'll find the whole gamut of shenanigans in here. This one, Stargate, KGB performs That Old Red Magic by Victor Zora. This one's another article. Oh, this is the same one. So what they do is they classify each one. So I'm showing here that they have different articles, and they'll save each one under a different title so people can find it. Or I saved this because they misfiled this record. Just kidding, I don't know. But some of them you will see that they have several different articles and they save it under different names. So they're classifying each record and then they're releasing each record accordingly, which makes sense. So this one got a little bit more interesting. This one's called Sunstreak Project. It's also in the collection of Stargate. It's a session, and we're going to click on the document. This one is from 1988. So this is a document that is from, it used to be classified as secret. It was Project Sunstreak. They were testing the individual's ability to remote view objects that were described. So this is 22 pages. It has records from each of the different test subjects and the success that they had in reviewing an object and identifying it and describing it, and their descriptions, their pictures, their hand drawings, all of their thoughts and explanations of what the item was that they were having them remote view and describe. And these are each of obviously different test subjects, different notes and descriptions. And this one here is the one that's summarized at the very top as being the most impressive. And let's read that here. So on the summary page, we have someone with very excellent handwriting here. In December of 1988, the person says the mission was to access and describe the target identified as coordinate 779491 and 021643. Viewer tasking. Describe A. Etched, carved designs. B. Origin of the object. C. The first owner of the object. D. The function and purpose. E. The present location. F. The person presently associated with the object. And G. Anything unusual or hidden concerning the object. Comments of this person. They said, after conclusion of session, the viewer was still getting strong impressions and expressed the desire to explore the spirit of this object. The evaluation, extraordinary session, with an exclamation point. The viewer declared AOL signal only twice, and both times the AOL was dead on signal line. I wish I knew if this was the America Online signal. It was like, and it was 88. There wasn't that. So funny. And then it says, this session must be compared with previous sessions to be really appreciated. So again, they're saying that this person did exceptional. It was an extraordinary session. And then right here, here's the type up session summary. Viewer number is 032. Date, December 7th, 1988. Start time, 10:30. End time, 11:37. They said the target is an object. This object is fashioned of metal with small amounts of wood and skin serving as part of it. There is a great deal of carving or etching on the object. See page 3, 13, 14, and 17. The object is flexible to a degree with shapes and aspects of curving and rounded. From one perspective, the object would appear curved, while from another it would appear straight and narrow. Think of some of the images we saw that they were drawing. Some of the others were close as well. The object was crafted in darkness, yet in the presence of a glow. The surrounding area was dirty and dark. The object was created by a craftsman, see page 15, who created both the object and the spirit of the object. The love, pride, and spirit of the creator were passed into the object and have remained there. The object has had many owners throughout time, perceptions of the first owner on page 16, and is in existence today. The object is cared for by a knowledgeable and concerned person. It is encased or surrounded by wood and is in a box, inside a box. See page 17. The object has been the cause of and seen much pain and anguish, although that is not the desire of its spirit. War and fighting are a function of its existence, while symbology and beauty are a significant aspect of its physical existence. The object has its own spirit. It feels and senses. It's been many places many times. It's been feared by man, yet there is no evil aspect to its spirit. It is very noble, proud, fierce, and loyal. The spirit of the object is tired. The object feels worn, old, tired. And it's so fascinating that some of these pictures, and it talks about some etchings and some metal and some wood. I'm wondering if based on this barrel, and I don't know what's going on here, but maybe that's the carvings that are on it. This could be like a weapon of some sort. It says that it's caused much pain. This looks like a gun, for sure. The barrel of a gun. This could be the etchings. But they emphasize that, and this could be the box that it's encased in. Now they're saying it's in a box inside of a box. And so they picked that up through this remote viewing session. Continuing on. Okay, so this one is also Stargate from 2000. This is when the document was released. Sorry, I don't see a publication date. It says a contribution to the problem of spiritual healing. So this is another one where they're pulling articles. This is an article here. I'll just read a little bit. So the CIA is documenting and keeping a record of this here, where it says, starting from the definition of spiritual healing given by Toulouse, the author reports, so another book, the motivation, the methods, and the results of an investigation which was performed by the, I'm not even going to try to say that, concerning the activity of a spiritual healer, in quotes. 650 patients were medically and psychologically examined, and the results of the contact with the spiritual healer were observed up to 14 months. About 52% subjective improvements were stated, scattered with about 15% on the various diseases. 3/4 of the patients were chronically ill. In contrast to these improvements, there were only few objective improvements. Finally, the psychological structure of positive reactors is examined. Improved methods are proposed, and the agencies of spiritual healing are discussed. So again, the CIA is looking at this book where they showed a psychological investigation into spiritual healing. Rather than dismissing it on its face, they are doing the diligence to research it. So that's my only point is here, that we should be actively doing the same. Here's another one where it's an article, Personal Reflections on Qi Zhang, so the Chinese practice, and comparing it to yoga and the effects of Qiyang as Qi or Qi as the breath or spirit, or the Pneuma in the Opus Magnum. So this is someone else's book, Science and Civilizations in China. Another interesting read, an example of their research. Here we have another one from Stargate. This one is showing the release dates. But this was, let's see if it says in here, from Colgate University in New York. This one is an interesting article studying the 2 cases of poltergeist and the cultural values as compared to American case and Brazilian case, and it goes into heavy detail about like a family, both have the same scenarios. One person in the house that's receiving this haunting, things breaking, things falling, and or cuts or different stuff that's happening, haunting to these people, in the Brazilian account for it being a result of dark magic being placed on the person, and then the American observation being that it's related to what they call RSKP, is it RSKP? Like extrasensory gifts that that person has developed because they've latched on to a bad energy or a bad something, or it's the person expressing their whatever is within them and their own capabilities. RSPK interpretation, psychokinetic force. So it's examining how different countries attribute these phenomena. Not saying that the phenomena are in question. It's saying that the interpretations of different cultures of what the phenomena is different in at home and in different cultures where they deal with this stuff more openly and it's accepted, like we talked about in one of the earlier documents about Thailand. So this one here was a deviation. Here, this one came up from the general CIA record. So this is the CIA Credo, and I just thought this was something I should keep in here because it came up in the search for spirit. So let's read the Credo for the CIA. Our mission is to provide timely and high-quality intelligence to the President and other decision makers and to carry out such other tasks as we are empowered by law to take. We adhere to the highest personal standards of morality and honor and conduct of activities in conformity with the spirit and letter of the law and Constitution. So again, just an example of what comes up when you put in a keyword. So it's interesting to get a mixed bag right like this, right? Our motto is, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And I think that if we adopted that same kind of mindset, we would be a lot more informed as people of who we are and humanity and mankind, what we're capable of, instead of kind of just waiting for our governments to reveal information to us or for us to like point fingers at each other or look down on other cultures and things like that, because it's all about finding the truth. It's not about, like, and understanding that truth can be hidden. So our intelligence agency is saying that by knowing the truth, they will be made free, and they're looking into things that we have been dismissing as pseudoscience. It's interesting that we aren't taking this further in 2023 when other countries are talking about like finally saying, hey, we've been seeing these UFOs forever, and people are like, oh, I don't know if I'm still ready to believe that. And they've got documents in here looking at this stuff for years. And my thing with that is always like, if you can get in your little NASA spaceship and blast off to go send something over to another planet or send satellites or whatever, what do you think you look like when you're landing on that other planet? You look like an alien in a spacesuit or whatever, and you look like you're in a UFO. So I just find that disconnect in our reasoning when it gets to these topics that we've been told not to believe in is kind of just funny in this day and age when there's so much information actually out there. It's kind of lazy now to just dismiss it as pseudoscience or nonsensical. And so the CIA's motto is, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. We recognize our people as our most important resource. We select the best and work to make them better. We treat them with respect and dignity. We seek people with courage, creativity, independence, and an innovative spirit. We place highest value on people who instill mutual trust and confidence, give their best effort at all times, subordinate their own needs and desire for public recognition to our mission, strive for constant professional improvement, and demand unflagging loyalty to each other and to the principles of free government. We strive to attract and retain individuals with knowledge, skills, and dedication to foster their professional development, reward them according to their contributions, instill in them a high dedication to excellence, encourage initiative, flexibility, and freedom of action, and blank in shared responsibility. That's super interesting. What is that? We seek to apply the most advanced method of technology to our mission. End of document. That's pretty cool, right? What a cool job to just know the truth and the secrets of everybody, right? So here we go. Another article, so this one's saying, is everybody in possession of the gift of extrasensory perception, ESP? So this is like that telepathy. So this was from, doesn't have the publication date. We need to clean up some of this data here, CIA. So right here, this one is this article over here, is everyone in possession of the gift of extrasensory perception? And then there's a couple of other documents here. This is where I think I gave the example of multiple documents being classified separately. So this is another one where it says experiments with Mrs. Lott to test her gift of ESP. So that article was saved as a separate one, and this one here is being saved, and this is, or it has it just below here. It talks about, I'll read this one. So Tinhafe was able to test the medium Mrs. Lott for several weeks. Together with Tinhafe, dozens of well-educated men, journalists, medical doctors, judges, etc. were present and participated in these experiments in which the medium was offered a psychometric object, an envelope, opened or sealed, a pencil, a pocketbook, etc., and asked to describe the owner of the object. The results of the, where did I go? The results obtained were quite positive because far more hits were registered than misses. A remarkable hit was the following. With regard to the object offered, the medium said, "This lady is all the time getting hold of her wrists. Is she going to commit suicide by cutting her wrists?" The truth was that this lady was very much afraid of being buried while still in a condition of apparent death. She didn't want to be buried alive, so she insisted that her wrists be cut before being buried. Based on communications 2 centuries ago concerning dowsers experiencing subjective sensations when finding themselves above certain ore veins, coal, mineral deposits, and the like, Tinhafe decided to test Mrs. Platt to see whether she, okay, that was just the end of that one section. I'm like, where is this wrapping back up? So this is a new thing. He also decided to test Mrs. Platt to see whether she was sensitive to certain chemicals and substances, mercury, silver, gold, sulfur, etc. These substances can be found in various homeopathic medicines. The results of these experiments, in which the medium had to identify which metals were present in both bottles presented to her, were highly successful. According to the experimenters, Tinhafe and several other persons, there was little doubt that Mrs. Lott Platt was highly paranormally gifted. Okay, so this was approved for release. It doesn't have the date. Actually, this does in here. So that one was from 1929. Okay, and then 1928 is when that actually took place. This was published in a parapsychologic, this could be a magazine or a book, in 1929. This one was also interesting because it was a similar account of testing a known psychic, and this one says that the person was then later visited by Adolf Hitler, it says, often. So another example. And so they're just documenting all of these records, and this one was from 1930. This one, Psychics of the World, Hiroshi Motoyama. I think this one's another magazine article. This is, again, CIA is collecting this document, and then down here it was interesting. It said they're recruiting for American Psychic Magazine is looking for true stories about people who disrupt electrical systems, including those who cause computers to malfunction when they get too close, and those who have difficult, you know what I could do? Look what I just did. Brilliant. All right, here we go. American Psychic Magazine is looking for true stories about people who disrupt electrical systems, including those who cause computers to malfunction when they get too close, and those who have difficulty making clear tape recordings. We are also looking for true stories about people with strong sense of north. The stories will be reprinted in their entirety or excerpted for articles about these phenomena. Please send all materials to American Psychic Magazine. And this was at Santa Barbara, California. And again, so this was classified as Psychics of the World. Another document collected by our friendly intelligence agency. This one kind of irritated me, I'm not gonna lie. This one was another one that just pulled up because I typed in the search term spirit. This is an all-purpose speech. So let me read this. They classify this document as a speech to give when you need to talk about the crossroads ahead. It's an all-purpose speech. Look at this. This has nothing to do with anything, but it's just fascinating. Public relations. The all-purpose speech. This is offered for the assistance of those who will be called upon to ghostwrite speeches for our civilian and military betters. As an old hand at this type of enterprise, I have frequently been given the directive, write me a speech, but don't get me in trouble. The following speech is guaranteed to accomplish this mission. So this is an all-purpose speech where they basically say a whole bunch of nothing, and it's been kind of like passed around as a speech to give when you're talking about the crossroads ahead, which is fascinating. Here's just a little taste. As we travel the long road ahead, down to the grassroots of America, there are those extremists whose voices cry out in the night. In this worthy cause we must not forsake, but rather, with wisdom, recall that there are those who say that tomorrow may be too late. Make no mistake, in our overall approach, no one will dispute this fact, and it is a sobering thought. It is perhaps more than coincidence, and honesty demands, whether we desire it or not, that we face up to the issue, as we must always endeavor to point out, this observation has led me to one conclusion. Like what? It's just, and then, okay, this was just a funny thing. So this is their all-purpose speech, one of them. All right, this was from, doesn't have the publication date on that one. Continuing on. That's just me being petty. All right, so here we have another one. This is just an example of someone who posted an article in the Wall Street Journal in 1985, and unbeknownst to him, his article is now was then in the hands of the CIA as a classified document. Super interesting. He wrote an article that the old world needs a new ideology, and so they classified this document and saved it, and all of a sudden Mr. Irving Kristol had a file. It's fascinating. Okay. Question of religion and youth. This one is from 1951. This one gets into some of the weeds of, I believe, Soviet Russia documents and the God versus science issue. I'll read it right here. Your reasoning is quite correct, comrade. Religion cannot help hindering the building of communism, for it represents an anti-scientific, reactionary ideology. Religion gives a fantastic, false, and perverted idea of nature and society. Its views on our environment contradict the true state of affairs, the indisputable facts of science, and the vital experience of human practice. Religion prevents men from understanding the laws of the development of nature and society, educates him in a spirit of humility and submissiveness, inspires him with a blind faith in divine providence. Religion thereby distracts man from revolutionary change, instills in the masses the idea of the possibility of changing an order of life alleged to have been established by God. Why, then, ask some readers, do churches exist in our country? Why is not religion preaching prohibited? This very question is raised by a young Communist League member, So this one was one of the things, the main reason why I brought this search and this query up in the Alice A. Bailey studies, because the question of can the fact of the soul be proved is presented, and it goes into the sections where it's like the mega scientific, where it's just like, no, it's been disproved because we haven't found a physical location for it in the body. And then there's the spiritual perspective where it's like, yes, we have all of these abilities where the soul can leave, or the consciousness can leave the internal body and go to remote view somewhere else, or astral travel elsewhere, or can pick up on senses that are, an intuition, and it can connect with other things through meditation, all the stuff. So it's saying that we can do all these things. And this is saying, no, they are two separate things, and they should not be considered. Like, if you believe one, you can't believe the other. And that's not true. So I think that it's very fascinating, or it was very fascinating and eye-opening for me to see that the government agency is looking into all this stuff, and this has been studied from way, way, way back, and that the separation of these two items needs to come to an end, because it's very tactical, and it keeps us, in a really in a state of lack, where we could be moving so much further ahead if we erased this strange division between science and spirituality that really makes no sense, because it has been studied and has been proven for years, and there's something to it. Back here is another one, another article, same kind of deal, 1952, saying the enemy of science. Straight up from the beginning, no ideas are so incompatible as those of science and religion. Scientific and religious ideas are basic opposites and irreconcilable enemies. Comrade Stalin says religious prejudices are against science because in some form every religion is the antithesis of science. Science evolved from the battle against nature, the practical necessities of human society, and the process of human labor. Since prehistoric times, the requirements of animal husbandry, agriculture, and river valley irrigation gave rise to astronomy and mathematics. Okay, so religion, however, repudiates experience and evidence. Religion, since it serves the interests of the exploiting classes, pervertedly explains the world around us, casts humanity backward, and sentences it to impotence before the forces of nature and to helplessness in the face of its oppressors. Religion is not interested in scientific progress, since each discovery deals it a blow. Man! And so it's crazy, because now people are like, you got religious people afraid to be scientific, and you got scientific people afraid to have any kind of belief in spirituality or anything that's unseen, and then it's like really crippling both sides. It's just the point that I'd like to make here today. And before this rounds out to an hour, I think I'm going to cut it short here, but there's a lot. There's just so much here. This one was an article where they're looking at Bulgarian poets and talking about how much or how little the poetry is picking up and making waves, or how little this is likely to set off a spark, because people don't really take that much interest into this land. But this is what's classified, but this one was classified. This is another style that you'll see. This is an unevaluated document. It's information, but it hasn't been evaluated. It's just collected. Founding Church of Scientology. So they have a funeral service for Scientology. They kept the notes of what the man said in the funeral service. This is a speech that was given by L. Ron Hubbard. We know his father of Scientology. This one here, oh gosh, there's some really interesting stuff. I might have to do a part 2 and revisit this, because there's some interesting documents on the China practice of criticism and self-criticism as a tactic of this next document, which is really wild. Oh no, not that one. Here. Thought reform, the 3 stages of the campaign for thought reform in communist China. That one's fascinating. So I'm in this here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that it piqued your interest, and that you take advantage of the opportunity to look through these documents. I'll put links below to the Freedom of Information Act reading room. Again, they have this for the FBI, CIA, all these different, whatever. Go off, discourse, and then I'll do another one where we get into the weeds of the articles specifically that I mentioned in the last video, because I still didn't get there. I did one of them about the remote viewing, but the other one was really interesting and juicy. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.